Before start this video, please subscribe my channel and click on bell icon. Thanks.
Crash, 2005. The Artist, 2011. Green Book, 2018. The Forgettable Marty, 1955. These are among the underwhelming movies awarded filmmaking's highest honor, the coveted Oscar for Best Picture. But alas, it's an honor just to be nominated. Unless you aren't, but deserve to be. Then it just sucks, and many a marvelous movie has been overlooked among its contemporaries by the oft-disparaged Academy of Motion Picture Arts Sciences. Here are 10, in chronological order. Related, 10 screen greats never voted Oscars Best 10 City Lights, 1931, City Lights, Charles Chaplin 1931, Intro Monument. While many of Charlie Chaplin's finest films, including 1921's The Kid and 1925's The Gold Rush, predate the first Academy Awards ceremony in 1929, the movie many consider H. Written, starring, and directed by the Little Tramp himself, City Lights incorporates two key elements of many Chaplin films. The first is simplicity, a motif rooted in silent films, where an inability to communicate orally inevitably dampens complexity. Like nearly all Chaplin films, City Lights tells a straightforward story. In this instance, Chaplin's protagonist falls in love with a blind girl, but, while raising money for her sight-restoring surgery, worries she'll reject him for his underwhelming appearance. What City Lights offers in return is Chaplin himself. He is, simply, among the most likable actors ever to grace the silver screen, a sort of silent, mustachioed anti-Ryan Reynolds. In a cinema landscape increasingly dominated by the then-nascent technology of sound, City Lights stands firm against a rising, inevitable tide, going so far as to mock so-called talkies in its opening scene. Its ability to do this rests squarely on the broad shoulders of its diminutive leading man. In the end, though, Oscar yawned. By the time City Lights hit theaters in early 1931, the proliferation of talkies made it an exceptional holdout, but an instant relic nonetheless. That's how arguably the best film from inarguably one of filmmaking's biggest stars was overlooked for a Best Picture nomination. Nine Touch of Evil, 1958. Everything Touch of Evil tells you in its opening 4 minutes. Film 101, considered by many critics as the near-zenith of film noir, Touch of Evil was an adaptation of the 1956 novel Badge of Evil. The haltingly shot thriller featuring murder, malfeasance, and deceit was written, directed by, and starred one of the genre's masters, Orson Welles. Or, at least, its original version was. After filming was complete and the film moved to post-production editing, Welles got into a snit with executives at Universal International, a studio whose less-than-perfect choices include 1980's IXS Howard the Duck, 2010's worst sequel ever candidate Little Fockers, and 1990's IXS Ed, The Uplifting Tale of. Anyway, let's go ahead and assume Welles knew more about movie making than these schmucks. The dust-up resulted in Welles being forced off post-production. Universal promptly ordered reshoots of some scenes, and revised its frantic editing style to be more conventional. Welles responded with a 58-page diatribe demanding his original work be released. Fortunately, Welles's vision was restored. Unfortunately, this didn't occur until 1998. The result was an already good film, becoming an immortal one. Roger Ebert added it to his exclusive Great Movies list. Michael Wilmington of the Chicago Tribune praised it as close to the pinnacle of film noir, thanks to wizardly moving camera shots, nightmarish angles, and incredibly florid, amusing performances. It remains a mystery whether the 1958 Academy would have merited Welles's vision, which only came t. 2. 8 Psycho, 1960, Psycho, 1960, The Bathroom, The Murder, Shower Scene, 1080, on with the inevitable Alfred Hitchcock entry. Several of his other films, 1963's The Birds comes to mind, could easily be included. Psycho edges it out based largely on its outsized influence on filmmaking and popular culture. Psycho was a pioneer in the anti-whodunit format. From the moment secretary-turned-embezzler Marion Crane gets stabbed to death in the most famous death scene in cinema history, everyone knows the culprit is either weirdo hotelier Norman Bates or his mother. In either scenario, Bates is clearly culpable. Even the revelation that Norman's nagging mother has been dead for a decade, by her son's hand, of course, is mere dressing atop his eerie insanity. Hitchcock's choice to eschew any real mystery regarding the killer's identity is intentional. Psycho's pace and cinematography, and Anthony Perkins' wonderfully disturbing portrayal of Bates, transcend the need to keep the audience guessing. By showing his cards early in what many consider the first true slasher film, Hitchcock builds tension around Bates and his motel that may have been diminished by ambiguity. So masterful was Psycho that a 1998 remake was almost a shot-by-shot replica of Hitchcock's effort. Why try to tinker with a film often ranked among the best ever? As for the Academy, it didn't entirely ignore Psycho. The film earned 4 nominations, including Best Director and Best Supporting Actress. One reason for its Best Picture snub was its low-budget black-and-white production, a departure from Hitchcock's previous film, 1959's North by Northwest. 3. 7 The Shining, 1980, The Shining, HD, Here's Johnny Scene, 720p. Many of the Best Picture Oscar snubs on this list were, at least, thrown a few bones by the Academy. Some were recognized for editing, others for visual effects, and so on. But surprisingly, one of the most iconic suspense thrillers in cinematic history received exactly. Checks the internet, 0 nominations. Not only that, but the 1980 film was maligned with 2 Razzies nominations, one for Worst Director, Stanley Kubrick, of all people, and another in the Worst Actress category for Shelley Duvall's portrayal of protagonist Wendy Torrance. The Shining, an adaptation of the same-named Stephen King novel, performed admirably at the box office despite a purposefully limited initial release, because it premiered the same weekend as this list's next entry. For decades on, its early reviews read like something out of an April Fool's prank. Kubrick has teamed with jumpy Jack Nicholson to destroy all that was so terrifying about Stephen King's bestseller, writes Variety. Gene Siskel gave the flick 2 out of 4 stars and declared it a crashing disappointment. So disjointed are The Shining's before and after reactions that its Wikipedia page has a section titled Reappraisal. Its assessment is simple: Kubrick's perspective-bending effort was simply smarter than. Where initial critiques panned Kubrick's deviation from King's book, over time, and considering his impeccable directing catalog, admiration for its maniacal genius became more the consensus than the exception. Johnny would agree. 4. 6 Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, 980, Darth Vader vs. Luke Skywalker, 4K Ultra HD, Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back fight scene, 1/2, certain types of films tend to be ignored when it comes to the accolade of all accolades. Comedies, thrillers, and sci-fi flicks have a steeper hill to climb on the road to a Best Picture nod. But the greatest science fiction movie of all time? Come on, people. Okay, let's say arguably the best sci-fi movie ever. Credible lists at least have The Empire Strikes Back in the top 5. But even if films like Alien and Blade Runner edge it out, Empire is the best installment of a franchise that, by its release, was already a phenomenon. It is second only to The Godfather Part 2 as the best follow-up in film history. Forget everything that has transpired in the Star Wars universe since. Forget corny Ewoks, pod racing prepubescent Anakin, and Darth Vader's idiotic origin story. And for God's sake, please forget the disjointed, disorienting, and dis-everything episodes 7 to 9 in their entirety. Take The Empire Strikes Back on its own. A film that built upon its predecessor's groundbreaking special effects and charming Western-in-space storyline so wonderfully that even a 2-foot-tall puppet was intriguing. Empire snub is genre bias, plain and simple. 5 1980 films received Best Picture nominations. 2, Ordinary People and Raging Bull, were extraordinary. The others were Elephant Man, Tess, and Coal Miner's Daughter. A reasonable argument cannot be made that Empire, and The Shining, for that matter, was worse than all three. 5. Do the Right Thing, 1989, Do the Right Thing, 3/10, movie clip, boycott sells. 1989, HD 3 decades before #OscarsSoWhite became a thing, there was little doubt that films with minority casts and filmmaking crews often got the raw end of the deal. Perhaps none of the terrific minority-made movies was more overlooked than Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. Lee's second feature-length film introduced the world to both Martin Lawrence and Rosie Perez, while solidifying the writer/director's emergence as a prominent voice in American culture. Suspiciously, its only acting performance rewarded with an Oscar nomination was for Danny Aiello, who is white. Do the Right Thing explores the racial tensions between Brooklyn's Black and Italian-American communities in the majority-Black neighborhood of Bensonhurst. Here, reality meets symbolism, as Lee showcases the conflict between a dark-skinned minority that has been in America since before its founding and a lighter-skinned relative newcomer that has reaped the benefits of perceived whiteness. Do the Right Thing proves Lee is a master of microcosm movie-making. An Italian pizzeria owner refusing to move from an increasingly Black neighborhood reflects the larger theme of white reluctance to cede ground to Blacks. Police bias and violence against Blacks reinforce the motif. Despite the era's most influential movie critics, Gene Siskel and Robert Ebert, lauding Do the Right Thing as the best movie of 1989, that year, the Academy instead nominated far lesser, and far whiter, films like Field of Dreams and Dead Poets Society. 6. For Defending Your Life, 1991, Defending Your Life, 1991 1 hour 6 minutes and 5 seconds to 1 hour 8 minutes and 19 seconds, okay, total dark horse time. Admittedly, it's heretical to argue that a rom-com should have been nominated for movie-making's award of all awards. Still, entertainment industry exceptions can be found everywhere. Sandra Bullock has a Best Actress Oscar, for God's sake. Released in 1991, Defending Your Life was written, directed by, and starred a guy named, no joke, Albert Einstein. That name was sort of taken, so he changed it to Albert Brooks. Co-starring the impeccable Meryl Streep, the movie opens in modern-day Los Angeles, before quickly shifting north. Or rather, up. Brooks's character is hit by a bus. Then, his soul heads to Judgment City for a panel to review his life, specifically, his ability to overcome fear, and determine whether he, thumbs up, moves on, or, thumbs down, gets sent back to Earth, memory wiped, for another lifetime. Streep's Julia will clearly move on, but Brooks's Daniel has an iffier fate. The two fall instantly in love, dating in their otherworldly limbo, with pithy exchanges and trips to attractions like the Past Lives Pavilion. Daniel's appointed defender, Rip Torn, shines as an authoritative yet salty supporting actor reminiscent of his role on The Larry Sanders Show. Defending Your Life is just so well executed. Romance with no sappiness and unconquerable consequences. Comedy rooted in creativity rather than raunchiness. It would have made the perfect rom-com pioneer for Oscar consideration. 7.3 The Matrix, 1999, Blue Pill or Red Pill, The Matrix, 2.9, Movie Clip, 1999, HD. This list features two films from 1999. One was snubbed, despite an incredible ability to capture its present. The other, this entry, was omitted despite its ability to imagine and depict a frightening future. The Matrix is among the first semi-convincing films to explore one potential flip side of technology, that humankind's destruction could come not from infighting but through innovation. The film's What If the Computers Turn on Us plot effectively blends 1983's War Games and 1991's Terminator 2 in unsettling reap what you sow fashion. In the process, it not only cemented itself in Western culture but also the English language, introducing phrases like red pill that have become vocabulary fixtures. Likely, The Matrix was mislabeled as a sci-fi/action movie by the stodgy Academy rather than the brilliant, blinking red warning sign of a film it truly was. The movie is a punching, kicking, felony-committing representation of Gen X male ennui at a point when history seems stagnant and, for many, disappointing. Norton as narrator schizophrenically starts a series of underground gatherings, where the pent-up violence is the end rather than the means. No Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires, and movie gods, and rock stars. But we won't. And we're very, very pissed off. So why the snub for a movie so reflective of its epoch? One reason is that no one could have foreseen how promptly America's post-USSR period of aimless angst would end, September 11, 2001. In hindsight, it is nearly impossible to argue that Fight Club wasn't among the 5 most poignant, relevant films of 1999. Anderson's movies are distinctive for being more live-action storybooks than conventional motion pictures, with uncomplicated plots serving largely as vehicles for ornate typography, elaborately embellished set designs, neat yet fantastical shot symmetry, and quirky characters toggling between outca. Two possible excuses, and they're excuses, not reasons, exist for the Royal Tenenbaums getting the royal shaft from the Academy. neither passes muster. First, it can be argued that filmmakers with unique styles take time to gain notoriety as geniuses rather than mere outliers. That the idea of its offhand dismissal by the Academy doesn't add up. The other possibility is that it defied categorization and may have been considered a comedy. But just because a movie has humorous moments doesn't make it a comedy. Anderson's amusing whimsy has little in common with, say, Leslie Nielsen's Frank Drebin of Naked Gun fame. Read more, Twitter website. Thanks for watching. Credits to listverse.com. Please subscribe my channel for more videos.